Hey everybody, this is Asim, and today I would like to talk a little bit about TypeScript and SharePoint. In terms of agenda, I was looking at putting together a few key aspects of TypeScript, the fundamentals, and then eventually follow that up with a demonstration built using SharePoint and TypeScript, SharePoint Online and TypeScript. We'll start with the fundamentals and then gradually pick up some speed around here in the demonstration. And just to set some expectations, this is not advanced TypeScript or a talk or demonstration. That's a topic, excellent topic for some other time. But this is just to kind of get the feet wet and get you started. So let's get started with talking a little bit how you would define TypeScript. So in a simple way, one could say that it is a superset of JavaScript, meaning whatever you could possibly do using JavaScript as a scripting language, everything can be achieved in TypeScript and more. About the more part, we'll touch some of the aspects in the next few minutes. It is definitely typed, and hence the name TypeScript. So now you can have variables with basic types or custom defined types. You could have classes, functions, etc. So that in turn makes the life easier for developers a lot when it comes to building more complex and enterprise scale applications, right? It avoids a lot of frustrating bugs that typically might come in just by the very flexible nature of JavaScript as a scripting language. One other thing I would like to add here is I see that as a very effective tool to bridge the gap between these two mindsets. Two mindsets being the object-oriented and the prototype or structural approach of building objects and classes. So coming from an object-oriented background, somebody can really connect well with the JavaScript part, or they could transition easily with the help of TypeScript. If I were to define how it works, it is a very straightforward process. Again, you need a TypeScript editor, which in our case is Visual Studio, of course. You write the classes or whatever code you write using TypeScript, and that is then picked up by the transpiler, does the magic. It creates the JavaScript and the mapping files. FYI, the mapping files are used for debugging purposes. Another thing which we can look at in details in the reference sites, which is there in the resource slide. And then finally, the browser picks up the JavaScript that has been generated and then executes it like any other app. So step one, just write the code in TypeScript, the transpiler converts that, and then it kind of packages and gets to the browser where it is executed. That's it. Very simple. Let's take a look at why do we need something like TypeScript. To start with, JavaScript by design is not something which supports strongly typed variables, right? So when you have a good amount of code and you have multiple developers working with it, things might get a little bit tricky and messy. And if you add to it the third-party libraries, which we use a lot, it is not a very comfortable scenario. So something like TypeScript gets you that functionality, that missing piece, which allows you to strongly type or define the types in terms of classes and basic primitive types, and then it also gives you an easy way to kind of segregate the public and private components or kind of abstract them nicely. It also gives you the capability to enforce certain behaviors using interfaces. All the good stuff that any OOPS language provides. So that in turn then makes it easier as an overall experience, as an overall developer experience. So what I mean by easy tooling is that the Visual Studio then picks that up and it gets you a better insight into your code, right? Now, instead of guessing what is the return type of one of those functions out of those thousands For example, in a SharePoint library, now you have a clear-cut return type or a method signature. The tooling also helps you understand the different function overloads. It kind of also helps you do the dynamic type inference and all those kind of things which are available. In terms of code organization, you can now use classes. Again, the same concepts of OOPS, hiding and showing what you need, encapsulation, and using the private public variables and things like that. You can also use modules to organize and separate them out into different files or different functional components depending on different criteria, whatever you decide. It also is, out of the box, the Visual Studio generates the JavaScript for you in a very efficient and a streamlined fashion. So it is already following the best practices that are recommended for writing good JavaScript code. So you don't have to you need to of course take care of it, but you can rely to a good extent on the code that is being generated. Last but not the least, it definitely increases the developer community reach. People who are coming from OOPS background can easily blend in and they get a good head start. And then there are of course other reasons or features which kind of make TypeScript a really compelling thing to use and bring in as part of your development toolkit. Let's take a look at some fundamental features. At this point of time, I would like to jump to the website and mention some of these, or actually show you some of these items, right? The type, interface, classes, functions. These are, I would say, the fundamental core features. So if you go to TypeScriptLand.org, this is the main site, and you'll find a lot of good material out here, especially this video by Anders Helsberg. This is something you definitely should check out. Well, back to the Learn handbook. So if you go here, this is I was talking about the basic types. So these are typical types that you would have in most of the languages. I'd like to bring this one to your notice though. Any is a type which is, it could be anything which doesn't fall in any of these basic types can be brought into that category. It helps you to kind of decide whether you want to opt in or opt out into the type checking during the compilation process, and it also helps you deal with the third-party libraries which may not necessarily have all the details in terms of typing that you have in your code because of TypeScript. When it comes to interfaces, you have different interfaces. You could have function types, interfaces defining a function type, the parameters, and return over here, for example, or arrays, how you want them, and of course the class, right? The typical OOPS thing that most of us know, defining an interface and then defining a class, implementing that interface. Moving on to the classes, so here you have different classes that you can define. You have the inheritance. So here is an example. Animal is the base class, and then snake and horse are extending that and then providing their specific behavior, or extending the class with their specific behavior. You have the public and the private modifiers and things like that. Functions. You have of course the name functions and the anonymous functions, typical thing in JavaScript. Now one other thing I would like to bring to your attention is the lambdas, or the fat arrow functions as some of us call it. So right here. So the point is that when you're making a call in JavaScript, this refers to the context in which the call is being made. And then it changes. The function where you call that, if it is a straightforward thing, it works fine. But the moment you have callbacks and some other tricky scenarios, it might throw some of the developers off guard. So This lambda functions here, they definitely help a lot in setting the right context when a function is being called and you are trying to access the variable for that particular class as you expect it to behave. Now we'll touch on this in our demonstration, in our code. So other than that, if we go back to our slide, and then you have these other advanced features, the modules, generic, mixin, and those kind of things, which again are available on the website. You can check them out at your own convenience, but they're definitely worth looking at. Alright, so how does it play with SharePoint, right? So it really fits well with the cloud first and mobile first theme, which Microsoft is pushing hard for good reasons. Most of the cloud-based apps are written using JavaScript. So when you have something which is bringing in more control, bringing in a better way of organizing your large libraries and code base that you're writing for enterprise class apps, it definitely helps the cause. It also makes it easier to use the JavaScript client-side object model. The type definition of SharePoint really adds on top of it. And of course, I think we have touched on this multiple times. It really helps in maintaining the enterprise scale applications. Multiple developers working on multiple libraries which are homegrown or built on top of third-party libraries. Alright, so at this point of time I'd like to stop and I'll switch to the demonstration, and then we'll take a look at the SharePoint app, which is right here. So there are two scenarios here. The first one is a simple app which is built using non-TypeScript approach, for lack of a better term, and then this one here is built using TypeScript. So we'll take a look at both of them in the next half of this session. Alright, hope to see you then. Thank you.